today what we're doing is we're going to be talking about how to do root cause analysis at Walmart in the SupplyPike product. So if you are a current customer, this will be really helpful for getting basically a kind of training from the pros themselves, the people who are building out the software on how to get the most out of the app itself. For those of you who aren't current customers, if you're not someone who's using SupplyPike every day or kind of in that world, it could be still a pretty helpful educational experience in terms of looking at the different ways people do root cause analysis for these deductions and looking at some of the more like nitty-gritty details that come into that process in terms of shipping document integration and all of that. But I'll let Hudson explain all that to you. On the next slide, we've got our introductions, I believe. Yes, I am Peter. I'm on the supplier wiki team. So my job is to be creating this free educational content for you guys to engage with, to really kind of help build out the supplier community through access to conversations like these and to kind of giving people insight into questions like root cause analysis. Today, we're joined by Hudson, who is the product manager for compliance at Walmart. He's been on this job for a while now, and he's really kind of been digging in deep to this particular issue. How can we bring the root cause analysis that we've been doing on the AP side into the compliance side as well, or some of the gray area between there too? So he's got a lot to say, and he's gonna be guiding us through some high level things about what SupplyPike is doing with root cause analysis, but also as I mentioned before, some of those details that can be really helpful for both SupplyPike users and non-SupplyPike users for just conceptualizing how to get to the bottom of these. So that's what he'll be doing.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for that introduction. Yeah, my name is Hudson Versier, Walmart product manager here at SupplyPike. Very excited to be here, talk a little bit more about root cause, specifically on the Walmart side here, root cause analysis. And thank you for that great introduction. I think Peter said it very well, sort of, kind of diving into the nitty gritty of, not just, what is the category of this deduction or fine that came through, but sort of getting into the area of, why is this here in the first place? What is the root cause? And so we'll get into a little bit of that. So first, obviously, who is SupplyPike? We're, cloud-based tool to help CPGs reduce revenue loss by automatically detecting and resolving retailer compliance issues. And going along with this, like we're going to talk about today in root cause, we want to also help with the get better piece in terms of our motto of get paid and get better. We want to help make sure that that suppliers are not only getting paid for the deductions that are charged to them, but then getting better over time in terms of reducing those deductions as a whole, which could really help improve cash flow, not only now but later. So that is us at SupplyPike. So like we just mentioned, let's go ahead and dig right into this root cause with SupplyPike here for Walmart. So on the screen here, we're showing why root cause. I wanted to highlight first, though, like sort of what is root cause. I know that is sort of like a buzzword used in this space about anything retailer related, kind of digging in. And so here at SupplyPike, the way that we are defining root cause is sort of not just the, like what is the category of this deduction, whether it's a shortage pricing allowance or a fine, whether it's, collect ready or, prepaid on time, things like that. Really what we are seeing with root cause and how we're defining it here at SupplyPike is really digging into the why they are there and to begin with. So really getting into the get better piece, like I mentioned, we want to fully understand. So with the data that we have, how can we drill in just a step further to help suppliers understand why is it that the deduction is there, whether it's something that the supplier could possibly make a change for, some actions to consider, or it's something that, you know what, we just have an awareness that for this group of deductions, it may not necessarily be our fault. And so we can kind of help separate that and really dig in and find trends there. So from there, getting into the why root cause. So obviously winning back invalid deductions is great. We love fighting those. We understand that they're a good chunk, especially on the shortages side, that are invalid and you can get your money back. But that would involve you as the supplier getting deducted for that, losing payment up front for these deductions, and then later getting your money in full for those deductions. But we want to help you avoid them altogether. We want to help our suppliers get closer and closer to reducing the amount of deductions that they see on their invoices in the future, which means, hey, when Walmart pays me, they're paying me in full for my goods. That's going to significantly improve cash flow in the near future versus getting paid in full later. And so, yeah, our root cause feature dives into a few different things. First being the likely reason for the deduction, sort of giving you a high level overview of it, sort of getting into a little bit of the data we use to determine the reason. As you can, I'll show you guys later in the app, we're going to have like a table or even like a checklist on the compliance side to sort of go in and say like, all right, SupplyPike, you told me that it was this thing. Would you mind showing me your work? And that is the exact reason why we wanted to make sure to showcase, hey, like, this is what we did to get to this conclusion. This is the data that supports this reasoning. And then at the end of it, some actions to consider taking. We understand that making a supply chain process can be very tedious. It can be a lot depending on the parties involved. And so with our actions to consider, we wanted to take a step further into providing some opportunities in which, there's a situation here in which there could likely be some change that might result in seeing less deductions in the future. We want to help you guys identify the trends and seeing, okay, for this type of issue, is this a trend worth tackling in terms of actually making a change? And we want to help guide you guys with the data that we provided and some actions to consider, obviously, and in an effort to help get better. And so, yeah. So kind of getting into a little bit of, like I said, sort of the homework, determining it. So how does SupplyPike determine root cause? It is a couple of different things. First, we stitch together a lot of aggregated data through resources within Retailing. That is a lot of how we, build out our deduction software. It is also how we are diving into the root cause analysis feature within SupplyPike at Walmart. And so from there, tying that to some sort of workflow logic, some sort of, steps that we take to have an understanding of where exactly or why exactly this deduction took place. And with that, taking that as a base and using our years of experience working with suppliers here at SupplyPike, the numerous amount of suppliers across different departments, across different areas, and really fine-tuning this data and this work to sort of help make sure that we're showcasing the right root cause here, using that as a starting place to understand how can I prevent these in the future and why is it even happening in the first place. And so really proud of what we've done here so far and really, really excited for the future of root cause here at SupplyPike. And that's a really good segue because hey, what is the timeline for SupplyPike in root cause? If you're a current customer and you've been diving into your deductions, you probably have already noticed that we currently do have shortages on the deduction side. So that'll include codes 22, 24, 23, and 28. And then on the compliance side, we actually have covered the in full portion of the on time and in full side of the house. That'll include obviously both collect and prepaid, since the in full wraps up into both of those metrics. Currently in development, something we're really excited about is the allowance codes. We're really diving into that side of the house and making sure that, based on, what your supplier agreement states in terms of what you and Walmart, or you as the supplier and Walmart, agreed upon, what actually happened at the end of the day. Did you provide the allowance that Walmart was expecting, or did Walmart expect an allowance that you guys actually didn't agree upon? Trying to help bring some visibility into what that looks like, and sort of digging into, like we've been talking about, the why on this deduction and its appearance in your chargebacks. Potentials. We are researching heavily into other types of codes or fines, into what is the next big opportunity for us at SupplyPike to really continue to dive into the root cause analysis, and really sort of leaning into and helping our suppliers get better. At the end of the day, we want to make sure to help a wide variety of our customers through these codes. But wanted to take a quick pause and just ask a quick question for the chat. Which codes would you guys like to see, for root cause analysis at Walmart? I'm very curious to hear you guys' thoughts there. So feel free to throw those in the chat for future development. Cool. All right. Have been moving quick. So before we hop into the app, Peter, was curious if we had any questions from the chat, or should we just keep moving along?
We don't have any questions from the chat. We did get a shout out for 22s from Alejandro, and so I'm sure you'll be diving into that a lot here in a little bit. But that's the only one that we've seen so far. I'll keep an eye on the chat throughout too. So as we go, if you have any questions about our methods or what we're doing, or if you want to kind of throw in another kind of Walmart code that you would really like to see root cause analysis for, or something like the kind of root cause analysis that we've built out in app for a different thing, let us know. And that could be a code, it could be any kind of point of revenue loss, or something that you're kind of curious about as well. So let us know.
Yeah, appreciate that, Peter. Well, yeah, with that being said, we can go ahead and dive right into the shout out code 22. Let's go ahead and hop right into the app here. We've got the demo company pulled up to showcase a few different things. Let me hop back over to the dashboard. So for the root cause analysis feature within the deduction side of Walmart here at SupplyPike, there are going to be three different places in which we're going to see root cause analysis, three different places that this feature reaches. So the first one, as I keep scrolling down here, the first place is going to be here on the dashboard. We're going to actually be rolling up these root causes into categories here to showcase, hey, similar to how I can view each claim code on, like, what is the size? What is the size of the problem here? Having an understanding from each category. What is the count? How many of these receiving error shipped in full per ASN am I seeing throughout my deductions? And from that point, it all comes back to money. Obviously, we want to make sure to protect our bottom dollar. So we wanted to make sure to highlight, of these three, how does that total from a dollar perspective? So let's say, for instance, you're trying to understand, all right, I want to dive into root cause analysis for my deductions. Where's a good place to start? I would say the dashboard is a great place to start in terms of figuring out, if I'm going to dive and drill into one type of root cause, let's go ahead and figure out which one to start with. And that would, we would recommend a high dollar amount, so you can have the highest impact from that perspective if you're deciding to make any sort of changes thereafter and trying to prevent some fines or some chargebacks going forward. That being said, we can hop right into the list view. Shout out code 22, like we mentioned earlier. We're going to look at an example here. And real quick, before we actually hop in there, wanted to point out the second place that we are showing root cause, or really that's part of this root cause feature. That this would be the filter. As you can see, there are a number of different options in terms of categories in which we've defined root cause under. And so this is a great place if you've already figured out, all right, I really want to dive into invoicing errors or receiving errors. I can hop over to the list view and actually filter for that in the list view. And so here I did pull up an example of invoicing error. Invoice quantity is greater than the shipped quantity to sort of show off that example. But like I said, you can You can either select one or multiple and kind of just see the size of the prize, even from the list view standpoint as well. But really using this to help dig into, all right, which deductions are affected for this type of root cause. So hopping in right here, go ahead and hop in. Probably recognize this if you're a customer. This is the deductions detail page. Really hopping in here to actually scroll down to the bottom into the root cause feature for the details page. This would be the third and the last place that we're actually showcasing root cause here at SupplyPike for Walmart. And so I'll go ahead and show this table real quick, but sort of like we highlighted in the slides earlier, there are three different sort of like key elements to this feature, specifically on the details portion. So like we see at the top, it's sort of like a high level description of what is like what is the root cause here. So we got some shorthand at the top, for this specific case, likely or likely valid, invoice quantity will exceed, or it does exceed the shipped quantity. And so from there, we have a little short description at the bottom. This is likely at a valid deduction. The ASN shipped quantity is less than the invoiced amount, indicating that the items were billed and not shipped. Receiving data does not indicate proper receiving by Walmart. So sort of giving you this high level overview. And then the second and really an awesome addition to this is kind of showing, like I mentioned earlier, that homework. SupplyPike, you're telling me that the root cause of this deduction was, X, Y, and Z. Could you show your work or show me some data to sort of prove that? And so as we're diving in here, this table is going to show you the relevant items on this deduction. And so as you can kind of see in this red, this line is going to be relevant to your claim amount. So going back up here to the top, claim amount in which this code 22 is worth is $112.80. And so making sure to highlight that here down below as $112.80. And so here we're sort of comparing the ordered quantity, or so I'm sorry, the invoice quantity to the shipped quantity. So it looks like in this case, Walmart had then ordered 96 eaches or cases of your goods. What the ASN shows is that you actually shipped 72 of those, but you then invoiced for what was on the purchase order, or just invoiced for what you were expecting to be shipping. And so this was a flag to us to say, hey, there is an issue here. We did experience this. And so that way we can truly highlight, there was an issue here. And so we can kind of give you the high level overview of, all right, how do the numbers lay out here? How can we then use this to understand maybe there are other cases in which we have maybe shipped a certain amount, but we still invoiced for that full amount that Walmart ordered. And so really digging into that to understand maybe some actions to consider. And so, pretty plain and simple for this example, but an action to consider here, ensuring that you're billing for only item quantities that you actually shipped. Mistakes do happen, but we want to help provide the understanding and trends around, are there problems that are persisting over multiple deductions, and helping you guys identify mistakes or even changes that need to be made across. And that's even outside of the other side of the coin, which would, be examples where maybe it's an invalid situation. We're showcasing that, hey, according to the data that we see, Walmart is actually not correct here and sending you this deduction and actually taking that money away from you on your invoice. And we're going to show that through those three stages: the high level overview and description, the table that showcases the data that we use to look and actually help you visualize sort of the other items related to it as well, and then some actions to consider. And some of those actions to consider on the shortages side could be involved with disputing, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure to still help you get paid for these deductions if they're invalid, but then understanding maybe some other actions to consider around that. Peter, did you have a question?
Yeah, we had a quick question about the shipped column. Melissa wanted to know in the chat if the shipped column is coming from what Walmart has received.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the shipped column is actually going to come from ASN data. And so that's essentially, if you're not familiar with an ASN, that's essentially saying the supplier is telling Walmart ahead of time, hey, this is what we've shipped. We've counted it out on our side. We're sending this product to you. And in this case, it indicated, hey, we're not actually shipping you the entire purchase order, at least according to what you've asked us. So we're sending you 72. And so that would essentially sort of be like the heads up, hey, Walmart, we're sending you some product. This is how much.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. With that being said, we can go ahead and hop over to the compliance side, specifically on OTIF, like I mentioned in the slides earlier. The second place in which we've started diving into root cause analysis was the in full. This would be related to both prepaid and collect. For this example, we're actually looking at a prepaid example, but wanted to highlight a few different things here. So the first being uh, that this filter that like we see on the deduction side, you can do similar things here on the OTIF side in our OTIF app here at SupplyPike. So right here, I've actually pre-selected a few that I wanted to go over for us. The first being the edit/cancel supplier accountability. So no product availability. Going from here, there's actually two different places in which we are showing root cause here on OTIF, or really specifically the in full. The first was that filter that we just saw, and the second would be in here. Similar to what you're seeing on the deduction side, we do have a broken down version in the details page. So in this case, this would be an order detail page. And so breaking it down here, we have a similar structure. So that first part, sort of going over, hey, what is, and in short, the root cause that SupplyPike is identifying for this fine. And then second, sort of going into just a high level description. And so for this case, it'd be canceled PO lines, which would be likely valid. For a code 43, no product available. This was used on these PO lines. And so it looks like in this case, it was all four of them. And so, even if the supplier cancels a PO line, according to Walmart, they are still held accountable for what Walmart originally ordered. And so similar to the deduction side, we're making sure to identify, all right, what does this root cause affect in terms of a dollar amount? And so $150 would be in this case what was affected, or sort of like the dollar amount attached to it. And then in this case, on this side, we're actually going and deep diving on the PO line level. And so for this case specifically, this root cause happened to actually stretch across the entire PO, 4 lines out of 4 lines in terms of root cause. And then that second piece, on the deduction side, we actually saw a table to showcase sort of our homework and some of the data related to how we actually got there. Here, we wanted to kind of show you more of a checklist. So really diving into sort of the steps we took. So the first being, was the DSS received greater than the OTIF's case received? And looks like the answer was no. So we've moved on to the next one. Was anything received? With that answer being no, we moved on to the next question. Was the PO line canceled? Yes. And so that is sort of what brought us to this conclusion and helped kind of give suppliers an understanding of, all right, SupplyPike, how did you get here? And so with the PO lines being canceled, we identified, what that code was, and identifying, all right, because it was a canceled line, we understand that that is likely valid for code 43 right here, with no product available on these PO lines. And then similar, like I said, to the deduction side, we have actions to consider at the bottom. So for this case, canceling PO lines holds the supplier accountable using different edit reason codes that hold Walmart accountable when applicable, of course, will help avoid those fines. And so, yeah, that is sort of the root cause feature for in full. I did want to go over one more example, but that is sort of the extent of what we're seeing on that side. Let me go ahead and click back over to one more example that I wanted to showcase. This one would be the short shipped example. Go ahead and hop right in here. All right, similar to what we saw on the other example, you'll have those 3 sections. Actually, but in this case, we were actually able to get straight to the point. So for short shipped, that being a likely valid situation. We've already ran through all the decision points and have come to the conclusion that these fines are valid. This PO line specifically was likely short ship of what was ordered. And so for this, 1 out of 5, $85 worth, we've detected that, okay, so has Walmart misreceived this item? We've determined it's no. Getting into then, all right, sorry, real quick. Was there an edit or cancel reason code? No, looks like we didn't detect one. And then, sort of coming to the conclusion, okay, the supplier unfortunately simply short shipped this particular PO line. And then one more thing I wanted to highlight here would be, obviously you can see this sort of pagination up here at the top. You can actually go over to the other root causes that we've identified for this purchase order as we've broken it down per PO line. And so similar to what we saw in that other example, here's another canceled PO lines likely valid for a code 43, no product available. This would affect 3 out of the 5 purchase order lines here out of this whole PO. And then going to the last one, an ASN discrepancy, another great example with that checklist. So yeah, wanted to break that down for you guys. Please let me know if you guys have any questions on any of the functionality, or if you have a specific question on, hey, I have this very specific deduction. I'm a little bit confused on your root cause. I would love to know your thought process, and I would love to know, how I can best help with the knowledge there. So.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Hudson. Yeah, if you want to just head back over to the slides, that would be great. Yeah, so get your questions in if you want. If you have more questions about the in-app stuff itself, we can obviously toggle back there too. We only really had a few questions. We had a question about the difference between 22s and 25s. And Tracy actually answered that for us really quickly.
Thank you, Tracy. Love that.
Yeah, we love to see this the supplier community helping each other out in that way. That's like really warms our hearts. But yeah, the 22s are goods billed, not shipped, and code 25 is no merchandise received for invoice. Those are the technical definitions. I also dropped a link to our Walmart deduction codes explained ebook in there as well if you want to read up more on the varieties of codes for shortages or any other kinds as well. And then we had the question already about what the shipped column meant there, and your answer about the ASN was really helpful for that too. So that's great. I think we can go on to the next, or we got another question here about code 22. So code 22 is for specific product codes shorted, while 25 is for the whole load.
Yeah, so how Walmart's looking at it and how they're deducting it. So for a code 22, when that normally shows up, it's going to be, all right, you've invoiced for this amount, and there was just a little bit that Walmart has claimed you've short shipped. But for the code 25 situation, that's really going to get into, all right, the supplier has invoiced Walmart for a slew of items, but Walmart's saying, hey, we didn't get any of this. We didn't, what you're billing for, none of this showed up, which they would issue a code 25 for that whole invoice.
Great, thanks. Hudson, you may know this better than I do. I don't think Walmart would ever double dip on that, right? Like in the way that they would for a shortage and an in full fine. Like you would never get a 25 on an invoice or saying that they didn't receive the whole shipment and then also get hit with the 22 for the same shipment.
Yeah, that's a great question. To my understanding, we have not seen Walmart give a 22 and a 25 for the same exact invoice. Obviously, if that did come to fruition, there would be, some invalidity there, since it's either one or the other. Either none of it showed up or only some of it showed up. Right. So we'd be able to use our tool to help identify, some of the connection there as well.
Great. Okay, we also got another question from our old friend Ken, who was a guest speaker with us back in the day. We love hearing from Ken. He says, wondering, with Walmart's recent change from in full lowering from 98 to 95%, besides the percentage being lowered, does this lowering affect the potential dollar charges? Sorry.
That's a great question. To our understanding of those changes so far, the quant or sorry, the dollar amount that comes from there, or the really the price or the cost that comes with it, to our understanding, will not change. It is simply just the lowering of those scores, those goals that suppliers need to reach. And so, as long as you're still hitting those goals, you obviously won't be getting fines. But to our understanding, it'll still be the same cost of about 3% of those goods, or the cost of goods sold, for the affected cases.
Yeah, great question and great response too. If you guys are curious about that, there's an announcement in Retail Link about that recent change that will detail um, what all that might mean for a variety of shippers and stuff. But yeah, the OTIF goals have changed a little bit to in a way that seems a little bit more approachable or reasonable for suppliers. So that's pretty exciting. Um, I think that's it for questions. Please get them in. We can keep going. We got tons of time, so we can keep going if you got more questions. But for now, we can go to the next slide to look at some of our supplier wiki resources. I already shared the Walmart deduction codes explained one there, but we have these are all ebooks on a variety of subjects and different retailers. We're covering a lot of basically what we call the rev loss space for suppliers and retailers. What are the varieties of ways that people can kind of avoid getting all of the money that they should? So that's a lot of what we're kind of focusing on with these. But we also like to focus on other regular supplier performance and metrics and things like that as well, just depending on what people want to hear. So, of course, you can use the chat for that as well. If there's anything that you would like, let us be kind of like the educational branch of your business to spend that time doing the research so that y'all don't have to. But yeah, that's some of the resources. And then I'll put our emails up here as well. So you guys can write those down if you have any further questions on, what would root cause look like for this, for like an allowance deduction or something like that. Please reach out to us with those questions. If you have a more specific kind of business related question that might not be relevant for everyone else, you can send those along too as well. But yeah, thanks all for joining us, and thank you, Hudson, so much for that wonderful presentation about root cause analysis in SupplyPike, and we look forward to seeing you next time.